Visualize this. The one with whom you've spent your entire life, the one who understands you through and out, the one who can make you laugh and cry, and, as your worst nightmare comes true, a lifeless body on a hospital bed. He was surrounded by tubes and monitors. Once unbreakable, the heart is now delicate. The house is now devoid of the joyful sounds of laughter due to the constant humming of the monitors. This was not a daytime drama or TV plot for Kelly Ripa. Mark Consuelos, her beloved husband, was confronted with an unexpected ordeal in the intensive care unit, which completely turned her existence upside down. Although Kelly has always been a positive influence first thing in the morning, she recently shared some moving thoughts on how terrified she was when Mark was taken to the hospital. She remembered the whir of sirens, the length of the hospital's antiseptic corridors, and the frantic prayers she muttered under her breath as she accompanied the gurney to the intensive care unit with her husband. It was occurring, she said, but she couldn't believe it. I went from being excited about our dinner plans to terrified that I would lose him in an instant. The subsequent events shocked everyone. Even though he was struggling to breathe in the early hours of the intensive care unit, Mark insisted on seeing their children. It was more than just a request. In an instant of raw candor, a parent made an impassioned plea. He wanted his children to hear his voice clearly, concerning love and nothing else, not his illness or his suffering. Before it was too late, he wanted to make sure they remembered all that mattered, even though it was mumbled between breaths. That one plea broke Kelly's spirit in a way that the camera could never capture. The tale gets more convoluted now. And although Mark's desire was straightforward, it was anything from easy to grant. The parents were pleased to see their children succeed in the world. Some were working, some were in school, and all were living the lives they had dreamed of. Kelly felt torn. She had a choice: absolve them of the immediate terror of their father's illness, or honor his wish and force them to confront an unsettling truth for which they were unprepared. She opted for love, and with that decision, the family's entire reality shifted. Upon the arrival of the children, the reunion became deeply emotional. Mark, Kelly said, gathered the fortitude of a man resolute to be the father his children wanted him to be despite being connected up to machines. Words that will endure forever were spoken to each child by him as he went around the room. He emphasized the importance of bravery and responsibility to his eldest. He spoke of kindness and resilience to his middle child. He spoke in hushed tones to his children, encouraging them to find delight in the simple act of laughing. However, the story hits even closer to home at this point. Kelly admitted that she felt her husband was preparing their family for both the possibility that he would recover and, worse, that he may not. His eyes betrayed the unique mix of love and grief that can only be felt by those who are on the brink of mortality. Kelly was in excruciating pain. How do you maintain optimism when your partner appears to be resigning themselves to the inevitable? American supporters were inconsolable at this point in the story. Mark made sure the kids would never doubt his love for them by whispering to Kelly before they stepped out, as Kelly revealed, "Assure me you'll continue expressing them on my behalf if I am unable to do so tomorrow," he informed her. Kelly was torn apart by that desperate request and plea. On the other hand, it was precisely this that strengthened her desire to remain by his side and fight against hopelessness. The question of whether this was their final family chat lingered, though. Were those going to be his last words? Those restless evenings spent in the intensive care unit waiting room were accompanied by that unease, Kelly confessed. Hope, the good times they shared in their youth, and the prospect of all the milestones they still had ahead of them were the things she clung to. During the stillness of those endless evenings, she had a revelation. This happens to every family eventually. Perhaps not at a medical facility, perhaps not under the intense light of an intensive care unit, but in those rare instances when, in a world where the future is filled with uncertainty and where the impact of our words is greater than ever, love triumphs over fear. Kelly has recently conveyed a message to her fans, which was motivated by that epiphany. Make haste. I love you. Don't hold back. Forgive immediately. Stop putting off sharing a joke, a tale, or an embrace. Because love is the only thing that matters when life puts us into those intensive care units. Unfortunately, we usually only notice it when time is almost up. And yet, there is joy at the end of Kelly's tale. Because, as Consuelo would have it, Mark's inner warrior started to show. Good news came slowly from the doctors. His respiration became more regular. He got red again. His grin briefly reemerged before fading out of sight. Every enhancement was a boon. I love you to remark that every advancement was a monument to both modern medicine and the unwavering determination of a man who had 1,000 more. The knot in Kelly's gut started to loosen after she had been subsisting on old coffee and adrenaline. In her early days of recuperation, she compared it like trying to breathe underwater. She could feel herself getting closer to the surface with each increase in Mark's oxygen levels or spoonful of broth. A fragile, wary one started to replace the what-ifs that had plagued her in the night. Reminiscing, Kelly said, "You don't realize how much you measure life in beeps and readouts until you're in that room." Her voice was still thick with the memories. While in the ICU, the once peaceful silence became the most dreadful sound. The sounds, however, began to level off after that. They were no longer a signal, but rather a beat. His comeback was accompanied by these songs. Just as he had collected his children with a calm strength, Mark dealt with his recuperation in the same manner. His initial coherent speech after the effects of medication wore off wasn't about him. As he murmured to Kelly, who had been by his side the entire time, about her disheveled bun and 3 days of wearing the same sweater, he said, "You look beautiful, but you need a shower." Kelly had prayed for a miracle, and that moment of hilarity was it. She had gotten her Mark back. The subsequent laughter resounded across the immaculate chamber, its sound marred by stifled tears. A glimmer of optimism had returned. The children, who had been vacillating between states of terror, suddenly had a purpose. They formed a strong support system for their father. The management of logistics, translation of medical terminology, and information flow were all responsibilities of his eldest son, Michael. Instead of worrying, the room was filled with music because Lola, ever the practical one, brought the right pillows from home and played her father's favorite playlist. The youngest, Wim, took it upon himself to amuse his dad by reading ludicrous articles online and rehashing college anecdotes. Their status as mere beneficiaries of a dying request had transformed. They took an active role in helping him become well. They were showing their gratitude for his affection by being extremely protective of one another. However, there was no smooth road out of the intensive care unit. Kelly was quite forthright in discussing the obstacles. At his weakest, Mark could not open his eyes from the extreme weariness he felt on occasion. When Kelly's own fears returned, it was at this very time. Rather than pray, she said she hid in the hospital chapel so she could weep in private. She knew she needed to be strong for him, but the remnants of her frailty worried her. It was mentioned by Kelly that he had made peace with it. The most difficult aspect was that he had faced death head-on and emerged unscathed. Truthfully, it was I who wasn't. The burden of learning was on me. What it means to battle for someone whose soul has already passed on to a greater force. Without showing him that I was terrified, I had to drag him back. During a routine nighttime vitals check, Mark firmly clasped Kelly's hand. Nothing came out of his mouth. All he did was cling. With that one touch, Kelly knew he was doing more than simply clinging to her. He was re-establishing his connection to reality. He had made up his mind to remain. They were his choice. It felt like a victory parade the day he was eventually transferred from the intensive care unit to a regular room. Proudly lining the hall were the doctors and nurses who had become like family. With a look that conveyed both relief and immense thankfulness, Kelly propelled his wheelchair. Going home was a whole different story. The one strong breadwinner now needed assistance making his way to the kitchen. A recovery plan now bound the dynamic, energetic father. A deep feeling of a second chance had replaced the dread, though. Kelly saw the family dynamic that had been broken by the crises come back together stronger than before. They did more than just drop by. The youngsters even helped out in the kitchen. They paid attention as well as spoke. Arguments over insignificant matters, such as housework or curfews, quickly faded. Even though their chats were brief, they were meaningful. The phrase, "I love you," has replaced traditional farewells, good mornings, and good nights. It seemed like a dream for Kelly to be back on her morning program. After recently enduring a terrible ordeal, how could she even bring herself to discuss popular culture or gossip about famous people? It dawned on her, though, that her story wasn't unique. This was a tale for all those who had ever waited patiently, for all those who had ever pleaded with the cosmos to grant them just another day. She told her audience, "We all think we have time," with a sparkle in her eye. We rescheduled the call. We purposefully left the debate unresolved. We convince ourselves, "I'll tell them tomorrow." However, some of us will still be confused tomorrow. There was a miracle. It is Mark's house. On the mend, he is. However, that night's supper plans were not made by the same folks as us. Here, we're great. Our appreciation is deeper. We also, in a deeply emotional moment, Mark Consuelos' struggle in the ICU has left fans and loved ones heartbroken. The actor, who has always been known for his strength and charisma, is facing a battle that no one saw coming. His condition has taken a tragic turn, and the news of his health crisis has rocked not only his family but the millions of fans who have followed his career for years. In the midst of this devastating time, Mark's last wish for his children has left a lasting impact on those who love him. As he lay in the ICU, struggling to hold on, he expressed his hopes and dreams for his kids, a powerful moment that has touched everyone around him. This heartfelt plea for his family's future, particularly his children's happiness and well-being, resonated deeply with his wife, Kelly Ripa, who was by his side through it all. Kelly, visibly shaken and heartbroken, struggled to keep her composure as she heard Mark's emotional request. The raw emotion in her eyes spoke volumes. This wasn't just about a celebrity in crisis. This was about a wife and mother watching her world potentially crumble. The strength of their bond, however, became evident as she vowed to fulfill his last wish for their children, no matter the cost. This emotional moment has left the world stunned. Fans from around the globe have sent an outpouring of support, sending prayers for Mark's recovery and strength for Kelly. As they navigate this incredibly difficult journey, one thing is clear: their love and dedication to each other and their family will remain unshaken.